Thank you, Jerry, NDI's music director. So hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Correa, and I am the program coordinator for the NDI Collaborative for Teaching and Learning. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as a non-disabled Latina woman in her mid-20s. I am currently in a bedroom wearing a red NDI shirt. I have a bed beside me and some Funko Pops next to me and a closet behind me. On behalf of NDI, welcome to our Teacher Training Tuesday series. And this one is featuring Jerron Herman. We will also be joined by the director of the NDI Collaborative, Emily Meisner, music director, Jerry Corman, associate artistic director, Kay Gaynor, and program assistant, Ariel Fauner. This workshop will be closed caption. If you click on the closed caption icon on your screen, you'll have the opportunity to make that available for yourself. Please take this moment to make sure you're muted and to make sure that you have room to move. If you're comfortable, we encourage you to have your video on so that we can see you dance and provide you with feedback. If you have any questions or comments throughout the workshop, please write them in the chat and we will answer you as soon as possible. And if you have any tech issues, please feel free to private message myself or Ariel. Also, in case of an emergency, I will say meeting locked, and I will send everyone a new Zoom link immediately after. Please note that this session will be recorded. Additionally, a copy of the recording, the chat, and all resources will be sent to you via email soon after this workshop, and you'll have access to them for 3 months. Although we are currently meeting via an online platform, the NDI Center is housed in what is currently called Harlem, New York. We would like to begin by acknowledging the Lenape people, the original stewards of the land on which the NDI Center is built. We offer respect to their ancestors and to the Black ancestors who shaped Harlem as we know it today. Our histories are intertwined. We travel along their pathways. All right, Emily, I pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Meisner. My pronouns are she, her. I identify as a non-disabled cisgender white woman in my early 40s. And today I'm wearing a red shirt with some blue dangly earrings, sitting actually also in my bedroom with a dresser behind me and some windows to my left. And I am the director of the NDI Collaborative, and I'm just delighted to have you here. And before I say anything further, I'm just going to turn it briefly to my colleague, Jerry, to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Jerry Corman, music director of National Dance Institute. My pronouns are he, his, him, and I am a non-disabled, middle-aged male. I am in a small room surrounded by instruments. I have a blue shirt, that's an NDI shirt. I have glasses, and around me is a keyboard, a piano, and a gong from China. And I look forward to today.
Thank you, Jerry. So before we begin the workshop with our extraordinary guest artist, Jerron Herman, I want to acknowledge that it is a very sad moment and time for NDI and for the world in the passing of our founder, Jacques D'Amboise, as many of you are probably aware. So I want to acknowledge that. And Jacques was 86 and passed away on Sunday night. And lived a life full of the most beautiful artistry and passion for teaching and for children, and believed so strongly in surrounding children with the very, very best teachers and artists, and that training teachers and working with teachers and growing as teachers was so critical and important. So I do believe very strongly that Jacques would have been delighted at this workshop happening today. So we, do this in his honor and in his memory, and he would have just loved everything about what's about to happen today. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And delighted to have you all here. This is a beautiful tribute, and turn it to one of the great artists working now in our time, the amazing Jerron Herman, whose artistry seems to know no bounds, who keeps coming up with new projects and new creative endeavors. Every time I turn around, he's doing something new, and we'll learn much more, and also a very gifted teacher. So without further ado, I turn it to you, Jerron Herman.
Wow, thank you so much, Emily. Yeah, I'm so honored to be here and really grateful for this opportunity. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. So I am Jerron Herman. I'm a Black man with facial hair and loose locks coming down to about my temple. I'm wearing a very loud green shirt today, but it's very in the vein of Indiago's professional, and black pants with some ballet slippers. I am in a studio right now. I've been a part of a wonderful residency with a group called Kinetic Light, disabled-led art collective, and you might see people coming in and out because we are in the end of one of our first ever bubbles. I'm sitting in the ancestral lands of the Ohlone and Ramaytush in San Francisco, California. And I'm so happy to be here. My pronouns are also he and him and his. So just to get to know you all, I'd like to start off with who's here. Today we'll be talking a little bit about pathways into teaching, as I am primarily a performer and primarily did not train in dance. I find I find differing pathways incredibly generative and available to us, to all of us, regardless of our status and station in the industry. And I think of it as a really great potential to talk through these big ideas of how do we allow, but also open it up so people can come through. Artistry is so ubiquitous to me, and I think that there is so much to learn from it. So I'm really grateful to you for being here today. We're going to go through three kind of stations of what I'm developing as creative inquiry. Today, we're thinking about EOC, embody, which is exactly how it's named. Thank you, Natalie. You see on the screen the word embody against a red background with an image, a stick figure kind of jeting, which I hope I can do today. And everything's in white letters. So yeah, embody, I'll take you through a section where you will get to observe and see a piece of choreo that I've created, and key into the kinds of stimuli and initiation that I bring forth. Maybe some of the shapes and key into some of the shapes and some of the ways that I've been developing work or developing line. And to observe, or O, observe, which is for you, and on the screen is in white letters the letter O and the word observe and a microscope. I love that, against a green background. And observe will kind of entail you going back into what you've just seen to analyze or to assess what were the things that you would pick up. What are the lines or the movements or the positions that you might want to think more deeply about, and then we'll assign some language to that. And then C is compose, where again you get to go through creating. I think that one of the elements of myself as a teacher is that I want to also be a performer, or I'd love to give teachers allowance to be performers in any capacity that I can. So you will perform. You will create a similar phrase against the two other parts that we've been thinking about. including some of my movement, including your own, and then thinking through what will be talked about as this entry into like disability aesthetics or disability art. And then we'll share and we'll have a great on time in our respective places. And Jerry Corman will play all day. I want to go back a little bit. Well, first, let me go through read the room. Hello, who are you? How many of you have? I'd like you to wave if you have taught for 1 to 3 years. Let's just give me a wave if you've taught between 1 and 3 years. Okay. How many of you have? If you've taught for 3 to 5 years, just give me a big stretch. If you've taught from 3 to 5 years. And then how many of you have, if you've taught for more than 5 years, give me a little freestyle. Give me a little like pop and lock it. Nice. Okay, so there are varying degrees of space in that, and that's what I'm really excited about, because I think no matter what, how long you've been at it, you can always insert something new. So how many of you have ever had a disabled student? If you have, I'd like you to make a concave shape. If you've ever taught a disabled student or had a disabled student in your classes or in your rooms. Cool, wonderful. Oh, that's really nice to see. And also those shapes are beautiful. And then how many of us are also performers? How many of us teachers are also performers? And if you are, give me a good undulation. Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're performing with an undulation right now. I see. I see you. And so then also, how many of us have used accessibility in our studios or performances? So when we're teaching, have you incorporated practices of audio description or ASL interpretation? Have you talked through these things with your students? And if you have, sway your neck. Cool. Okay. So that's really interesting. Because I think one of the things I'm working through is how to showcase those precepts and those ideas through movement and through performance and professional productions. I think that there's always been a kind of separation between the teaching world, the training world, and the performing world, and as though you do one before the other, or you don't do the other until you do the former. And I'd like to think of it as a little bit more of a through line. How do we start to think about training and teaching as not just preparation for performance, but as performance? And so that those elements don't get separated, because I think when artists get into performance and we're not already, if we're equipped through our bodies through training, then we should be equipped for performing through training as well. And so elements of that, like adding captioning to our dance performances or ASL interpretation, or thinking through different ideas of body mechanics, need to transfer over. So we do need to do that work already, which we'll do now. So the first, within O, I just like to show you a phrase. It's a short kind of phrase that was coming out of not only my own practice, but a little bit of what I've been seeing from my contemporaries. One of the things that I really love about being a disabled artist is that I'm in community with so many different artists already. We're spanning like studio art, visual art, music, film, theater, and of course dance. And we're finding that swirl happen. So I'm excited to think through like how does my execution of dance and of movement also carry the legacies and my contemporaries alongside me. It's not just me on stage, but it's us. So through that, I've been thinking about what is authentic. So I just begin, the phrase kind of begins on a diagonal. And if you would like to get up yourself and start to think through this, how I might teach, how I usually teach is through stopping and starting. I'll pick, oh yeah, come on over, you're good. How I might start and stop. But yeah, so we start in kind of a neutral space, standing standing tall, and we're going to drape our arms over us. That's Laura Lawson with a beautiful, a beautiful wave. Um, we start off with moving in and out our arms across our bodies. So in, and you want to feel your chest also move up. So in, out, in, out. And when you get to the back, when you get to behind you, I'd like to, you're gonna have a releve. So one, actually, think of it like entering in, one, out, that's not right. One, two, and then the third is a releve as you're going back. So we're going in, two, and now three, up. One, two, and three, up. Does that make sense? One, two, and three, down. One, two, and three, down. Great. So once we have that, one, two, and three, we're gonna come up here. And this is a move from my very first piece of choreo from a show called Phys Ed. And it was me thinking about the push-up in a different way. And so how you're going to kind of embody the push-up is, let me see if you can see me from all the way. Okay. So from that releve, you're going to come down, and releve is also a different term for saying just rise up through your toes. So when you releve, you're just thinking about the toes expanding and extending up. And when you place down on the four, hopefully, you're starting to pump upward. So one, two, three. And as you pump, I'd like you to think about you're moving downward. You're allowing that energy and the momentum to take you down. So one, two, three, and place. So we start off with like this lilt, very soft, right? And then we position up, two, three, four. And when you land, I'd like you to move, safely land. I have my left leg out. I have my left leg out and my right knee in. Think about how you might land safely. But in this way, I'd like you to also start to key in to rigidity. So one of the elements of my embodiment is spasticity. And so in this way, how can you think about the pressure of maybe one side or one limb against your body? Could you think about it pressing or having some kind of close attachment to you that would counter the sway, the slowness, or the fluidity of this other arm? So I'd like you to try and incorporate that as we go through this part again. And then when you land, I'd like you to maybe sink into that land a little bit, because then you're gonna push up. All right, so let's just try that up until the push up. Okay, ready? We're gonna go from the beginning. Settle and begin. One, two, three, releve, land, push up. One, two, three, again, land, and then soften, soften, soften. And then what would it look like to push up? What would it look like to just push right back up? I'm gonna check in with how we're doing in terms of our peeps. Yep, looking good. Yeah, cool. Moving on. From here, I'd like you to just fall into it. So you pushed up, just fall into it. Because then you're going to come back, do a pencil turn to come back into front now. So we start in diagonal, we're gonna end here, and you're just, as though you're trying to be like, save face. You don't want anyone to know that you, Make sense? From here, we have a little bit of a shum hop. So where this is also coming from a piece called Phys Ed, wherein the jumping jack is also kind of rethought. And so I instead of doing the whole thing, I've cut it. So from here, when you're here, you're going to embrace a down. So you're going to plie as you come up, and you're going to straighten as you come down. Plie as you come up, straighten as you come down. Plie as the arm comes up, and allow your head to kind of ricochet as you do that. Maybe you could get a little bit wild. Yeah, wild, sorry. Just here. A part of this is coming from also that kind of arc is coming from my first choreographer, Heidi Latsky, who incorporated a lot of that. She loved a good undulation. She loves a good undulation. So from here, we're gonna allow this arm to move over, keeping, and then you're still thinking about this tension, right? I want you to just key into where that rigidity, where you place that rigidity in your body, because my arm is always placed, so there's always going to be a feedback here. So what's your feedback? As you come up, maybe just give me 3 of these. Boom. Then we come over here and we place. We make a very, like a diagonal, it's just a very straight position. Your arm is like saying like, hello to the next person next to you, and you're in kind of a lunge. Your left leg comes up into an arabesque. And then you're going to just place that arabesque, and bring it forward, and then place it in front of you, just like that. Okay, let's do all of that much. And Natalie, how am I doing with time? Or folks, how am I doing with time?
Jerron, you're doing great. I wonder if we
Good.
could do all of that and then maybe with the music, maybe with Jerry.
Fantastic. That sounds great.
Do you want to go
All
first
right.
without Jerry, or do you want to go right with Jerry?
No, let's do with Jerry. Yes.
Great. We'll follow you.
Okay. Ready, Jerry, for you.
Okay. I'm just going to start and then we'll follow you if that's okay.
Yeah,
All right.
totally. And 1, 2, releve, settle. 1, 2, 3, and push up, come down, spin, hold it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, ha, 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 and cool. One more time. Let's do it again. 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, releve and settle. Up, 2, 3, down and push. Lean, 1, hold. 1, 2, 4, 5. Up, up, hold. Cool. Wonderful. So with that, what I want to kind of pull out from that, we did a couple of things, or you might have noticed some things. That with this rigidity, I'd like you to now we are in our observe section. I invite you to come bring out a piece of paper or a notebook or your notes on your phone, and just kind of write down maybe some positions that were interesting to you, that were particularly evocative, the lines that were made, shapes that you saw, maybe quality of movement that was interesting. Just take a minute to write that down before I say anything. For you, what did you observe that piqued something for you? Thank you, Jerry. Great. As you're coming back, and as you're coming back, continue to write all that you need. I'd like to just also add into your analyses these provocations. What are you reading about my body in particular, just visually, and how would you what information are you getting from my body, or what information are you getting from my body, just by looking at it? What do you note? What do you see? Do you see any interventions already, or what you might have wanted to think through and think about? Put that to the side. And any impressions, any impressions about what you're seeing or what you saw, and also what you felt, right? Like, jot down two descriptive words that would express how it felt to be in that embodiment and in that movement. And let's have another kind of moment of just nice playing. And Jerry, you take us into can give us something in the background as people write. The last prompt I'll ask you to jot down in this observe is explicitly, I'd like you to write down 4 to 5 movements, lines, qualities that you enjoyed or would like to continue to embody. Write those down as just like arabesque, slowness, arch, in the whatever you might want to, what you found particularly evocative, and write those down. Great. Part of the quality of this movement too is the nature it can be described, or it can be understood in different kinds of textual variety. I'd like you to, I think this is a little bit different than what I had anticipated, but based off of what happened and what today is, I would invite you to try to describe what you saw. So how would you have described the movement? And take us maybe in two to 3 sentences or 2 to 3 lines. How would you describe the phrase? Would you use technical language? Would you use poetry? Would you use onomatopoeia? right? All of that is open to you. And I invite you to just kind of think through the phrase, what you initially notice, and write down what that would be. And let's take a minute to do that. Fantastic. So now I invite you to rise up again, whatever that way that is. And we're going to think through, is that correct? Yeah, we're going to think through what our individual phrases are. So out of those 4 to 5 movements that you picked up on, I'd like you to think about quality and think through how you described it, and try to incorporate those questions and those decisions in how you are going to piece together your phrase. Also, if you would like, think about what it would be like to describe what you're doing as you're doing it, either in your head or out loud. So like I would say, I've begun, and well, I did it as I was explaining it. But yeah, the act of describing what you're doing is actually making yourself accountable, and in a way, your body does start to move in the way that you said it would. So let's with underscoring, let's create our own phrases again, or now, with those 3 to 4 lines. And if you feel like you have more to do, pick up more movements, pick up more of what you saw, and I'll be here as a reference for doing the phrase. And if you want to pick something else after that, then go forth. All right, Jerry, you're the man.
All right, we're going to stay in lyrical land, everybody. Here we go.
Fantastic. And let's give them let's give them more time, a little bit more time. Let's do that again. Wonderful. Start to come back if you can. And then within our compose section, I'd like to give each of us opportunity to share and collaborate with each other. You'll be broken up into pairs. And as you go into your breakout rooms, think about your phrase between you two partners. Pick an A and a B. A will dance their phrase. B will describe what they see using the frameworks that we've kind of incorporated. thinking about quality, thinking about shapes, thinking about references to the natural world, or yeah, different textures that you can incorporate. And then you'll switch and do the same. Yeah, and if you have any questions, pop it in the chat. But we invite Natalie to take us to our breakout rooms where we'll share, as well introduce yourselves, say hello, and then share together.
Jerron, before we divide up, let's just, I'm seeing a couple questions in the chat, just to go over exactly what the assignment is in the breakout rooms. Meet each other.
Okay.
And then each, go ahead, keep going, and I'll put it in the chat in writing.
Yes. Great. Yeah. Meet each other. Say hello. Pick a performer and a describer for round one. The performer will show their phrase. The describer will jot down either on paper or in their phone what they're seeing. And then you'll switch. So the describer will become the performer. The performer will become the describer. And yeah. Is there any other questions for that?
Jerron, I think one of the questions might be, is the describer describing it out loud in real time, or is there a point at which when the describer will describe it out loud in real time?
That's a really great question. I think it's up to the pairs. If the performer wants it aloud or silent, then yeah, that would be a great kind of pairing difference, right? It doesn't have to be the same all around. So yes, you can audibly, verbally describe, or you can jot it down and describe. Just to give you some transparency when we come back, I'd like us to share some pairs of this work and see what comes out of it. So you and your partner should create kind of a language between each other about, or a framework of how sharing a piece of dance would look like for you two, using some of these elements. And yeah, so if that is cool, let's do it.
Great. So I'm going to send everybody off into breakout rooms now. I'll resend the instructions and also give you cues so you have an idea of. Welcome back, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm switching to gallery view. Oh, now I can see everyone. Hi. Welcome back. Did you meet your partner? Did you have some fun? Did you have some stuff? Coolio. So do I have a initial partnership that would like? Why don't you put yourself in the chat or raise your hand or something as you would like to go. Okay, so we have Jamie. I see Jamie Scheifler. Is that your husband? Sorry. And who's your partner?
Schleifer. My partner is Claire, the ever popular Claire.
Cool. Hi, Claire. Okay.
Awesome. There she is. My bestie.
I think actually, yeah, maybe Natalie, would it be better if people like raise their hand so you could spotlight them?
Yes, I would say that you can just like wave, or like once you speak, that'll be helpful to me.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is how it's gonna go. Thank you for being first. Yeah, this is really exciting. Okay, so who's A and B? Who's going first, and who's going to describe for us?
Okay, well, we did it where Claire went first. Now, do I describe it after or during?
What did you want to do?
I can do it during.
Great. Let's see it during.
Because then I don't have to look down at my notes.
Sure. All right. And then Jerry will have no music because they're going over it and so we can hear the descriptions. But then maybe after, no, let's just see this pairing as it is. Awesome. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Claire is standing stage right and her one arm is flowing front and back and front, and she rises up and she reaches one arm, climbing up and reaches down to the ground. She pushes off, lunges to the back. She turns, crosses her feet, brings them together. She goes one arm geometrically shaped to her forehead, and she plies and she reaches over one arm, and she reaches her leg and across and over to the front of her body, backs up, feet together, and rolls up and ends her dance.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, this was really exciting. You fit in so much in so little. I mean, you know, like there's such little time. I think that's one of the very big things about that kind of practice. It's like dance, you see so much and yet you have so little time to think through it. Is there a switch in here, or do you, okay, great, awesome. Let's switch this group and then see the same. Would you like to be during or after, Claire?
I can go during if that works, or
Cool.
you know, if Jamie wants music, I can do after. We'll go during. That feels
Great.
right.
Awesome.
Jamie's head flows with her body. Her focus follows her arm. The energy builds as she releves and pushes forward down into her lunge. She makes her way back up, rotating around, finding her focus. She has a beautiful rebound with her arm as she comes back up from plie. She steps as if to say hello, balancing carefully, focused with a beautiful flexed foot, and then releases, undulating her body back to neutral.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you all so much. Do we have another pair? As we're doing that, I just want to think through Claire's narration description, which involved relationship. Like that's what I really enjoyed. I think there was so much about like you kind of knowing the person, knowing Jamie. That was really exciting. There were times that you connected two different things, two moves together. That there was relationship not only between you, the describer, or the observer, and the mover, but also their movement. That it was connected. Same with Jamie, to be able to say something about one going into the other, really nicely. And that also, Claire, that you allowed a bit of analysis. You said words like beautiful and words like, you know, nice, and you commented on your partner, which I think is so interesting, especially in modern dance. We want to be so removed or distant. There was you dipped into that. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. Do you have another pair?
I do want to go with someone from my group, but I haven't tried the live describing, but I would be totally down to try it in the moment also.
Had you already written something down?
I had to pop into my group late, so it was
word. Okay,
yeah.
Sure. So, yeah, why does it be an experiment? Why don't you live describe?
Love it.
See what comes out of it.
In my group was Kalia and Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh, so we have two. Okay, interesting. Okay, here's a challenge. What would it be like? What would it be like to describe both of them at the same time?
Let's do it. Let's just see what happens. Standing, focused, glasses off. Arm to heart, weight shift, undulation, curving across and over. Focus downward, arm out, arm sweeping in, circling, softening, falling. Suspension, spiral, hand to heart, open heart, disappearing, reappearing, turning to look, eyes to the ceiling, arms sweeping, rise, fall, rise, fall, rise, fall, little smirk. Backing up, ooh, bigger smirk. Foot, head.
Okay, that was really interesting. I'd like to parse out some things. Two, one, what would it be like to describe the relationship between the two performers, right? So, for example, Kalia had a different cadence and a different timestamp than Ginny. So in our describing even that, like how do we differentiate and give the audience a moment for them and for them, and how could that land? What I loved about what you did as well was like the affect, like you gave us character in what we're seeing as well, so that you allowed lilts, you allowed it a bit of like, there was emotion to what you're seeing, which is also really exciting and necessary. Again, not monotone, but something effective. Partners, would you like to try a different configuration, or is there something else in this that you all found cool about a trio?
Yeah, we were talking about when Chloe did her, Chloe, I don't know what pronouns you use.
Thank you.
When Chloe did her dance, that she was commenting on how our narration was like was bringing attention. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Maybe you should just say it.
But... You're doing great. You're doing great. That's exactly, yes.
Okay, so it was like bringing attention to what she was doing, which made her be in choice about whether to do that thing more fully or to actually move away from that thing.
That's really interesting. There's a dancer named Elise Patterson, who's out of Boston. She's a disabled artist. And there was a piece that I saw of hers that of Elise's that incorporated overheard audio description, and the movement. It was unclear whether or not the movement preceded the audio description and audio description preceded the movement. And I think that was a really interesting question, right? Because it's like different elements, like lights and tights. We always know what happens, but even that element being shifty was really exciting. Ginny, do you have anything to add from your group?
I just I should have added my dog, if that's what I have to ask. No, it was really interesting because I was alone actually for a while, and then I was really happy for Kalia to join. It was an interesting experience before beginning the dance sequence to be alone, sort of waiting for my partner, and then just dancing alone, and then dancing with Kalia, and then later Chloe joined and we both narrated. So the circumstances, kind of brought on this different structure, which was really interesting and just felt easy and natural but different. So
yeah, I guess you all had the relationship was just, adding on to each other. We went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 7. I mean, I love that. That's really interesting. Do you back one last question for this trio? What is your final product? Of what did you all kind of settle on or in before we got back together? Is there anything that makes sense? Like, was there a completed dance? Was there a completed audio description, or were you still in the midst of it? That's my question.
Each of us performed and described, and it was a solo that turned into a duet that turned into a trio. And it the elements, I wasn't there for the solo, but I guess for me the elements kept getting more and more exciting as we went.
Very cool.
We had a final iteration, but it felt still in process.
Very cool. Yeah. I think
It felt like a final when we were invited to dance here. I couldn't see at all. I was aware of like delaying my start in just thinking. And so, but I didn't see Kalia at all. I just could hear Chloe. And so it felt like that was the final.
That's really cool. Thank you so much. Oh, please, sorry.
No, that's all. That's all.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Love a trio. Love a trio moment. Where are we at? What time? We're at
We can do a few
6
more.
o'clock. Great.
We can do a few more.
Who's next?
Don't be shy.
Morgan, do you want to go?
Sure, we could go. I didn't want to volunteer you.
I didn't want to volunteer you either. So I have a whole bell show happening in my background right now.
Ooh, that could be scoring.
So we kind of both had the same idea when we were talking about what an iteration could look like, where we try to dance and describe each other at the same time.
Fantastic.
So I'm sorry, the bells are really, I don't know if they're really loud. I just have lived by it.
They're not loud.
Yeah, no, they're not very loud.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's our background music. Swinging and spinning.
Goes front and back, arm reaching forward.
And reaching and spinning
Up
and
the wall,
going.
straight up and down, palms flat against the wall.
Bending and melting and
Moving out,
breathing.
out. And fall, plank to the ground, straight, press against the floor, rebound, up, down.
Arms going down, reaching down with your arms.
Leg back.
And bringing your leg out.
Swirl in a circle.
Stretching,
Wiggle, wiggle,
breathing.
wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Hitting.
Down, hands hang loose.
Fast, sharp. Pausing, breath.
Circle. Still.
Groovy. All right, what came out of that for you in terms of doing it simultaneously? What did you learn?
It's easier with practice.
Yeah, or was there any improvised descriptions or yeah, out of what you did, or was everything set?
Oh no, it was not set.
Cool. Fantastic. Yeah.
I feel like it was the feeling that the last group described of like being aware of somebody else, and then like even though our movement was both set, I think my movement morphed and changed because of my words I was saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you two were also a duet. Like even though you were describing yourself, and what I found really exciting was that there would be times where the descriptions would meld, but also there was a really set kind of understanding of this is that person who's saying this is that person that's saying, like delineation between you two that was both like staccato and flowy, you know. So there's really something exciting about that.
Curious how the sound came out, because for us, we can hear the sound straight through, but if you're watching on the other side, does it come in spurts?
Yes, it does. It totally does. And that's okay. Like, again, like there's this element of like of scoring that happens. Really great work. Wow, that's really exciting. I would encourage you to keep going, to make something together in that vein. You have a duet on the rise. Very cool. Thank you. yeah, so like those are what we're seeing, right, from these examples, is bordering on what I would call disability aesthetics. It's bordering on, like, it's there's an understanding of embodiment, the word embodiment signifying that someone with a disability is also dancing, also participating. But based off of what I've been cueing you all with, like, key into the rigidity of my arm and the embodiment of my movement, but also environmentally, what we're doing is we're creating and we're designing an environment that potentially could welcome all different kinds of patrons. Disability aesthetics has that kind of opening, which is why I'm using it as a lens, because as we're thinking about teaching other people, as we're teaching people with different body types, different backgrounds, different just different identities, right? Like, there's what is an opening? How can we open? And I think through keeping it close to who that person is, and keeping it close to what they're giving you, what you're receiving, is always going to be a really exciting, create a class culture, or create an environment where people are going to be keying into that individual, as you all know. But there is an element of like seeing them and seeing their work habitually that really makes environments sing, I think. Do you have another partnership? Oh, wow.
Sarah, you want to go?
We can go.
So we did, so we watched and then shared words afterwards. So maybe we can just do that same model that we did.
Yeah, why don't you show us movement, and then why don't you present your descriptions afterward? I love that idea.
All right.
So then, do you want us to move together at the same time and then share what we have?
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Okay, thank you.
And Jerry, would you give us some underscoring for this? Cool. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then what is that other layer? Why don't we have, Shannon, you go first, and then Sarah.
Sure. So when I watched Sarah's movements, the words that arose for me were swing, embrace, drop, twist, reach, up for air, tilt.
Would you could you put that into a line of, or a thread of something that could be a full description? How would you give us all of that in maybe a sentence?
Like in a sentence?
Mm-hmm. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, and I'm like, whew, look at my words.
It's all a workshop.
Yeah. Swinging with open and closing embrace, dropping to twist, reaching arms apart, coming up for air as she tilts.
Beautiful. Wow. Really exciting. Okay, and let's switch. Sarah, give us yours.
Can I take a stab at kind of like what Sharon just did?
For sure.
Okay, so one of the things that so I saw how a continuous twist that then turned into a spiral that then trickled into an undulate, and from there disappearing down into the ground and then stopping and resetting.
Cool. Yeah, wow. I mean, I love the language that you chose and the languages, how you're languaging each other, especially as they were so different, right? So there's something about like, even in this configuration of how we're seeing you and how you're presented, and it's a whole different thing. And so to understand what you saw of that thing that we saw, there's this congruity, and I wonder sometimes if it can be incongruous, if it can be like if it doesn't jive with what we visually see but what is intended. There's so many different elements to this, right? Like, we're talking about an after effect, we're talking about what happens after we've done this movement. We haven't even talked about what the artist intends for something to be done or seen. So we're still in an observing mode, and that to me is always so compelling, right? Because when we get the information of the performer and the person who intended all this stuff, then it's another layer and then another layer. And so this is also how access can be effective and generative, because there's a relationship. Thank you so much for that. Really, thank you so much. I want to propose someone who wants to just be a performer, and I'll describe them. Does anyone have does anyone feel brave and just be a performer? Allow me to describe them.
I don't want to over volunteer, but I'd be happy to, but
Oh,
also
cool.
would be totally down if someone else wants to do it.
I so appreciate it. Let's see if anyone else would like to go. Thanks.
I could, but if you want to go, Chloe, go for it.
I would like to see what you have.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do this, Jerry. Let's play what I'm sorry, I'm gonna see your name. What's your name?
Oh, Nyla.
Nyla. Let's see what Nyla, let's first have Nyla present, and then we'll do it again, and I'll describe what I'm seeing. Cool. Sweet. All right. Well, wait, you ain't done yet. I'm gonna do it again. This time with no music. And let's see. Yeah. So first, I'm gonna set the environment. What I'm seeing in the environment. Nyla's in a whitish room with a black refrigerator off to the side that is almost standing like a dance partner, and she stands in a corner ready to go whenever you're ready. She sways right and left. One foot is peeked off of the ground a bit. She sinks very slowly and caresses the ground. Although it's above her, she pumps until she hits the ground, letting it fall down completely. Two pumps and up to circle around. One leg has been up the whole time. She sinks again into her hip. One of the legs go up. She scrunches into herself and holds, breath up. Cool. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. So the thing that I think what I'm continually learning about these practices and these ideas is that they're not static. They have they should be used and thought through like 70 million times. And often, you know, how we prep for lights and for tech this is how we should think about possibly these frameworks of access. So you don't feel any kind of way about I didn't have the language yet, because you're always going you will be able to reference the visuals and reference the movement as many times as you need before it's broadcast or before it's in a public viewing setting. What else do I really want to say? Oh, well, I guess the reason why this is the framework is because when we invite people in who don't have typical training styles or training backgrounds, this moment was really for us to kind of bypass a lot of the strident rules of what it means to kind of maybe get into movement, maybe get into a phrase. Certainly I have, and even teaching the phrase, quakes and moves that require a reset or require to fall out of it. So I guess to the extent that I would like us all to kind of keep that flexibility as we teach and as we go through welcoming students and welcoming community members, that there's going to be times of as we know, times of imperfection, but I think what we learned here is that there's something to read and there's something to draw from at every interval of what we've been creating to get today. And I certainly have gotten like even more relaxed with you. Like I'm no longer in this like presentational mode. Like I'm part of you. And so I think that that's another thing to kind of think about with respect to environment. You've invited people in, and then you set up a certain amount of tasks, and you inquire about those tasks, you read those tasks, and then you dissect them, then you analyze and you see what works, and then you put it together. This is not separate from what you already do. I just guess I'm languaging or putting language to what you're doing and how it can be thought through. And that access isn't a dirty word or a way, an aside from what you're creating. And that's what I also want to encourage you with as you think through these things, that this is an artistic aesthetic that can be utilized in various ways. With that, I welcome questions. I'm going to pass it over in this way of questions and answers and X and Y.
Jerron, I wasn't sure if you wanted to do the word cloud activity now.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Natalie. On it. Yes. So this is the after effects of all that we've kind of thought through. The prompt for you is what we want to see is like what we can take away from today is, for you, what makes a pathway healthy? And we invite you to sound off on that and give us now that you've dipped into your vocabulary and your ways of expressing today, welcome any kind of varied answers to this question.
So what's going to happen, we see a blank canvas right now. You're going to go to menti.com and put in the code on the screen. I'll say it out loud, 80733550. You'll be able to insert some words or phrases, and then they will pop up on the screen. I'll also put the link and code in the chat.
Mm.
Jerry, can we get some underscoring music while people type?
We can do that.
Great. I think almost everyone filled it out. And I just want to make a note that the bigger words mean that more than one person wrote that word.
Mm.
So I see variety, flexibility, access, curiosity, open energy. Those seem to be common responses.
Yeah. Inner momentum, freedom to express, acknowledgement, collaboration, air, clarity, variation, confidence, multiple places to enter, responsive, community, thoughtfulness. Ah, wow. Thank you so much for filling that out, for participating in this way. I hope that this is just another place of inquiry. Following this, I hope to have maybe to contribute a glossary of maybe some of these terms that were thought through and talked about, that should be shared after we've met today, to further incorporate into your work. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we're at a, if you have any questions pertaining to my work or to the class structure, would love to hear that.
So I would encourage, if we have about 5 minutes, so you can either write your questions in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Jenny.
I had a thought, but I'll make it a question. Because the words are so beautiful, I have a thought solution, but in working with people with vision loss and the narration and this kind of exercise where I'd love to hear your, that's a population I work with a lot. So I'm always thinking about them. But I'd love your thoughts because I have my own.
As in how to create work within the mind, or to
or just even this particular exercise, which is narrated and observed and collaborative, so, and
totally. So I guess I'm thinking about my blind and low vision friends who tell me just this, like what they want, what they would have liked to know about what's going on. And so I think a lot about how it is, it's a desire for me to create language that not only articulates like what is actually being done on stage, but also what are the contours and layers and relationships to what's happening on stage. So the lights, everything is being incorporated. because it's a full picture, right? So I guess what I would say is like giving people the most information so that they can make their own choices about that environment they're in. So just opening up, giving them as much information as they could possibly need or want to interpret how they want to, what is also going on.
I just want to thank you because you gave me a new idea, and I've worked with blind dancers magnificently, and their dancing is so beautiful, and I'm familiar with audio describing, but to have them audio describe their original choreography or me to do that, I don't usually, that's so
cool. That's great.
That's gorgeous. Yeah.
That's great.
I see a question from Jamie Schleifer.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerron. First of all, it was so inspiring. But I had a similar question or just statement along the lines of what Jenny was saying, because when I was describing, I was, because we're dancers, I was saying arabesque and releve and blah, blah. Not everybody knows that. So Jenny, it's like, of course, you have to be using words, you have to meet them where they are in that sense. And I remember, oh my goodness, working with Jacques, and he made me take 30 children into another room with a piano player. I had never done it before. And he said, make up a dance, it's something like a march, and come back in 30 minutes and show me. And I brought him back, and I had the children start facing the back. And he said, why did you do that? I said, well, to make it interesting, whatever, He says, how are the deaf children, how are the hearing impaired children going to know when to start? They can't see the conductor. They don't can't say 5, 6, 7, 8. So all these things to consider, very, very, very important. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, one of my pieces I did with a musician, Molly Joyce, was called Breaking and Entering, and we were experimenting with how we would incorporate access, and we had a live we had to create a recorded transcription of the live dance because of network connectivity. But what I found so interesting was that the language that was used in the transcript wasn't typical dance language, and non-dancer people came up to me and were like, oh, I didn't know that was what that move was, or that that element. So it increased other people's literacy of dance in general, which I really enjoyed and didn't expect. So that was really exciting. Yeah.
And one last question. Chloe would like to know if you could share more about the place you are inside of.
Sure. So I am you know all the business. I'm currently in a residency with disabled led art collective Kinetic Light. I've been here since late February, and we are in our warehouse space / home, which has been where we've been creating and developing work. Primarily this piece called Wired, which details the historical, racialized, gendered understanding of barbed wire in America, and the disabled narratives around that too. And so we're creating a piece that details the people in the wire and the wire itself as generative story. So it's been really exciting and tough. I would show you, but it's proprietary information. But yeah, it's been really, I mean, as we all know, like we've all been without our own studios for a while. And so I feel really, really fortunate to have been in a space that lent itself to the creative process.
And yeah. Jerron, isn't it being premiered next week?
Oh, so we were invited to do a documentary style of us in process, which is called 1 + 1 = 3. a part of, it'll be distributed through All Arts on PBS on May 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Check it out. Kyle Abraham and Pam Tanowitz are also invited companies that will be showcasing similar, but not similar films. And they're all pretty interesting. So check them out.
And we can include the link to and the details, or at least the time and the details in our follow-up email.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Thank you,
so
Jerron.
much. Yes, thank you, Jerron. Thank you all
Thank
so
you,
much
Jerry.
for joining us.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, India. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. I will send
Cool.
everybody an email with the resources, and stay tuned. Next week, we have Teacher Training Tuesdays with Luis Salgado, and the following week with Stomp's Fiona and Jason Mills. So we hope to see you soon again. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, stay safe and keep dancing. Thank you for joining us this evening. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.